What is going on, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Around. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach Kevin Smith. Coach, we made it. We're here, week one. What's up?
Game week, Jeff. That's very exciting, man. We finally got here. College football's already kicked off. High school football's kicked off. We're just waiting on the big boys.
Yeah, quick update. Did you all win your game, week one?
32-0, Jeff.
Woo!
Very convincing first game. Pitched a shutout on defense, scored on defense, and rushed for 230 yards. So when you can run the ball and play good defense, that's good stuff happens.
3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's Kevin Smith's offense.
No, that is not. That is not. But we'll do what we need to do, Jeff.
Hey, a win's a win. Congratulations. Hope you all have a good season. Let's start this off. I wanted to go in a different direction a little bit. You know, we talk about the upcoming week in my For Your Viewing Pleasure podcast, which you'll hear tomorrow on the podcast channel with Wesley Coleman, where we dissect all the games in week one. I wanted to talk about teams, though, in each conference. We're going to start in the AFC that you would deem a sleeper. A team that a lot of people might not be talking about, but could do some damage, not just in the division, but in the conference. So with that being said, and that's the outline of what a sleeper team is, who would be your sleeper team in the AFC in 2025?
I'm pretty high on the Denver Broncos. I think that they are a lot better than people are giving them credit for. They had a very good defense last year, top 10 defense. And Bo Nix showed some really promising things on film down the stretch last year. They won 10 games. They got their feet wet in the playoffs. You know, they went to Buffalo and got smacked around. Really no shame in that for a young team. This is year 3 for Sean Payton, his second year with Bo Nix. And it just feels like they're ready to take off. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're going to knock off the Chiefs in the AFC West, but it wouldn't stun me if this was the year. It just feels like, man, how much longer can Kansas City, given the grind that they've been under? I mean, they've been to 5 out of the last 6 Super Bowls. That means they're playing at least a month more of football than everybody else for the most part over 5 out of the last 6 seasons. At what point will that begin to catch up to them? So I feel like Denver's a team that could really sneak up on people.
I agree, and they definitely do fit the criteria, even though they were successful last year, and we saw a lot of good steps in the right direction under Sean Payton and with Bo Nix at quarterback. I don't know if you would consider the team that I was thinking as a sleeper. They did win the division last year, I believe. They did play very well in the postseason, and most would say they went into Arrowhead and technically probably should have won that football game if not for some weird calls that went the Chiefs' way. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. I think the Houston Texans, while yes, they had success the last 2 seasons, are not being talked about amongst the elite in the AFC. And I'm not sure that they should be, but at the same time, I think they could do some damage. I think that CJ Stroud didn't have as bad of a season last year as a lot of people think. I think that offense and that defense especially are really brimming with young players. I do question because, you know, obviously the injuries that they've had at the wide receiver position. I think they'll be good. I think that the Houston Texans are going to sneak up on people this year. But that's my sleeper pick. Coach, what are your thoughts on Houston?
I think it all begins and ends with their offensive line. If they're able to protect C.J. Stroud, they did it well when he was a rookie. They didn't do it well this past year. They've moved on from their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick.
Yeah.
People were like raving about him 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden he's out of a job, and that's the way the league goes. But if they have rebuilt their offensive line sufficiently to give him an opportunity, we know they play good defense. They're going to benefit from a weak division. I think Denver, Houston, and the team you and I covered most closely, the Pittsburgh Steelers, all have an opportunity to surprise some people if things fall their way. I mean, I think they could all be better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. I see the Steelers being picked to finish 3rd in the AFC North by a lot of people. But they've loaded up on talent on both sides of the ball. Veterans, they seem to be in go-for-it mode. And they're a team that maybe could catch lightning in a bottle. So those would be my 3 sleeper picks in the AFC.
The thing about Houston that also concerns me a little bit is they need to run the football, and Joe Mixon's hurt. I think he's on IR to start the season. And their general manager, I believe, came out and said he might not even play this year. So that's a big deal in Houston. And so I'll be monitoring that injury to see which way it trends. But I agree with Pittsburgh, too. I think they're going to sneak up on some people. If they can stay healthy, then I think they're going to be a team that's going to be, we'll put it this way, a tough out. Maybe that's not a sleeper. I don't know. But let's go to the NFC now. Who would be your sleeper team in the NFC?
So, you mentioned, I think these are like the Houston Texans of the NFC, and it's the Tampa Bay Bucks
Okay.
who have won the NFC South a couple years. But again, that division doesn't get a lot of respect. It's not the strongest division. But I think their offense was really good last year. And now you add Emeka Egbuka, who I think is a Rookie of the Year candidate, to that mix. They've got a veteran defense. Baker Mayfield's playing the best football of his career. You still got Mike Evans there. And again, they're going to benefit from a weak division, probably win that, get a home playoff game. And one thing I think is interesting is this. Tampa Bay has been a thorn in the side of the Philadelphia Eagles for a long time. And the Eagles are, I think, the consensus #1 team in the NFC. Tampa wins a home playoff game, and then let's say they go on the road to Philadelphia in the divisional round. History says that that's been a tough out for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it wouldn't stun me if Tampa Bay wound up in the NFC Championship game this year.
That would be that's bold. Now, I agree with that as a sleeper statement. I'm going to go to the West and for mine, and I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. I think Arizona...
That is a sleeper, Jeff, right there.
It is, because no one expects the Arizona Cardinals to do anything, but unfortunately, you have to put all of your stock into Kyler Murray, and I don't know if I'm ready to do that. He didn't play poorly last year. That was coming off of his knee injury, I think 2 years ago, if I recall correctly. But Kyler Murray is just, I don't know. He's so up and down. He's not a big guy. The smaller statured quarterbacks typically don't have a good run in the NFL, but they do have some good football players on that football team. Marvin Harrison Jr. going into year 2. They pick up Josh Sweat, I believe, from the Eagles as a pass rusher. I was thinking if I was going to go with another team, I would stay in the West and say the Seattle Seahawks. But I don't know if I'm a believer in Sam Darnold and in Seattle. They get rid of a lot of talent there. What's your take on those two teams in the NFC West?
Arizona would be the Rip Van Winkle of sleeper picks there, Jeff. I mean, they've been asleep for a long time.
That is
the Cardinals. True. I agree with you about the Kyler Murray assessment. I mean, it feels like now he's in year, I believe, 3 or he's coming into year 3 of the 4 or 5 year contract extension they gave him.
Yeah.
And for me, this is like a make or break it year. This is the year where they have to decide, if he's the guy for the future. Because if not, then who? I mean, where are they going? I think they're 11-17 since they extended him with him as their starting quarterback, and they gave him a big deal, $200-something million deal. So at what point do you say he's not our guy? I mean, so I don't know how that's going to play out, but I do know that this is a crucial year for him in Arizona.
Now, what do you think about Seattle? Just off the top of my head, there were some of the moves they made, trading Geno Smith, trading DK Metcalf. They bring in Sam Darnold. It just felt like they were trying to rebuild on the fly. Like they were just like, okay, let's tear it down and let's see what we have. I don't know. There's a lot of people that are high on the Seattle Seahawks running game, and they're high on their defense. And if you can do those two things well, you can win in the NFL. What's your take on Seattle?
I think they're a good football team, but I also think that they're kind of stuck right now in that gray area where they're good but not good enough. And yeah, I agree with you, right? It was moving on from Geno Smith in favor of Sam Darnold an arguably better move at the quarterback position. He's younger, Sam Darnold, so you get that. But is he going to play better football? Because Geno Smith was playing some pretty good football for the last few years up in Seattle. So that's an interesting move. Is moving on from DK Metcalf going to pay off for them? Are they going to be explosive enough? Do they have the receivers to accommodate Sam Darnold? That'll be interesting to see. I could see them being a 9-win team. They won 10 games last year. Maybe they win 10 again. But I don't think they're good enough to compete with the upper echelon in the NFC.
Any other sleeper picks for you in the NFC?
I don't know what qualifies as a sleeper, right? Is Green Bay a sleeper? No, because they just landed Micah Parsons. Are the Rams a sleeper? Well, I mean, the Rams have a lot of big names, and we think they're a pretty good football team. The 49ers had a bad year last year, but if they rebound, they won't be a sleeper team. I think it's got to come from out of nowhere like last year, like the Washington Commanders did. And I think that we've pretty much checked off the boxes as to what teams could possibly do that. Could the Chicago Bears shock everybody? They could. That would be a sleeper. But man, they're the fourth best team in a really good division right now. So that's a high hurdle to clear for them.
The ultimate sleeper team in the NFC would be like the Panthers. If the Carolina Panthers could somehow, some way turn Bryce Young into, well, the number 1 overall draft pick when he was selected, we'll see. If I'm not putting money on that. Let's talk about Micah Parsons. You brought him up. Since the last time we recorded last week, Micah Parsons signs, or he doesn't sign, he gets traded to the Green Bay Packers. But today, I'm recording this on Monday, there was news that came out that he is dealing with an L4, L5 injury. For those that don't know, that's the lumbar area of your spinal cord. That is the lower third of the spinal cord. And he's having to undergo some serious treatment. And this also dates back to when he was in Dallas. They're not sure if he's going to be able to play in week 1. So before we get to the injury stuff, what was your takeaway of the trade in and of itself from Dallas to Green Bay?
Unless there's something the Dallas Cowboys know about his health and its effect on his long-term prognosis, this is a ridiculously awful trade by Jerry Jones. It's a terrible trade, man.
Yeah.
You're taking your best football player and you're trading him. Why? Right? What is the discernible reason as to why you need to trade him? Maybe it's because you believe you can get a Herschel Walker-like haul. You can repeat, catch lightning in a bottle again in the Herschel Walker deal. But you got back Kenny Clark, who's about to turn 30. He's a nice player, but he's on the downslope of his career, and he is not Micah Parsons.
Right.
And then 2 future number 1s, which actually doesn't really make sense if you're adding Kenny Clark, because by the time those number 1 picks are ready to be major contributors, Kenny Clark's going to be almost done as a pro. And then you have to actually turn those number 1 picks into impact players, which I don't think very many people believe Jerry Jones can do. So what did you get in return from Micah Parsons? You got the hope that some things will work out down the road. And I think if you're Dallas, that's just a terrible deal. I think why'd you really trade him? Like out of spite, because he wouldn't, negotiate in a way that you were comfortable with, that he put you on the spot and he made you look bad publicly. And Jerry Jones is always wants to remind everybody he's the man. And so he made the move that the man makes. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I kind of wish that Jerry Jones in this instance would have just been honest. Like he was trying to sell us this, well, we want to stop the run better. And that's why we got Kenny Clark. And these first rounders, maybe we won't draft them. Maybe we're going to trade them. I don't care. Like that's all. You're just trying to spin it in a positive way. I would have had more respect if he would have said, you know what? The guy didn't want to be here. We had someone that was giving us 2 first-round picks and a player that we think can help us stop the run this year. And you know what? That's fine. We don't want to pay him $180 million or whatever he got. Now he's the highest non-quarterback paid in the NFL. I wish he would have just said that. Jerry Jones, if I'm anyone, maybe his sons, get a microphone out of his face. Like that's the best thing they could do for the organization. After games, hey Jerry, we're just going to keep you in the box, or maybe we'll take you down the back channels to get you into the locker room. He does no good for that organization, and that's really bad when he's the GM and the owner. But at the same time, you're right. If there is something to Micah Parsons' back injury that the Dallas Cowboys have seen, this has been an issue maybe the last 2 seasons. It's not gotten better. It's only gotten worse. And if the doctors are saying this is not going to improve, would that change your outlook on the trade?
It would. It would. It feels like if that's the reason, then there's got to be some kind of like not dealing in good faith on Dallas's part. I don't know if that's...
Well, they would all have to pass a physical.
Yeah,
so like the trade wouldn't be verified until he passes the physical with Green Bay. So if Green Bay doesn't spot it and say, this dude's back is all jacked up, then the trade's nullified. Right. So that's on the Packers then too.
Yeah, true. If we go back to the point that you made, hey, this guy doesn't want to be here. Well, why did he not want to be here? Right? Did that have something to do with the fact that the owner was, treating him like he's some low-level employee, and that the culture there is unbelievably dysfunctional, and that they haven't won anything in 30 years? I mean, maybe some of that factored into him not wanting to be there.
That's possible. It's very possible. But I think that this situation, and no one saw this coming, When you have Trey Hendrickson, he gets his money. It's only added on to this year. He's going to be a free agent, I believe, after this season. Terry McLaurin gets his deal. And that left Micah Parsons. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned when I saw that they traded him to Green Bay and for what the deal was. And, some people are saying Herschel Walker, get out of here. That's not even close. Not even close. And so if I'm a Cowboys fan, though, I'm gutted. Probably didn't have a lot of hope this season anyways, but this makes it just even worse. Coach, if you're a Cowboys fan, what's going through your head?
Well, imagine if you were just a Dallas fan in general and you saw the Mavericks trade Luka Doncic, and you're like, what? And now Micah Parsons is out the window. I can't imagine. Imagine if for Pittsburgh fans, if all of a sudden the Pirates unloaded Paul Skeens, and then the Steelers decided that they were going to unload, T.J. Watt. I mean, it would be like, what is going on here? So It just feels like there's a cloud over Dallas sports right now.
What did I do to deserve this as a sports fan? But I get it. I totally get it. So this is going to lead into our discussion about week 1. I think there's a lot of intriguing matchups to watch. But when I say intriguing, Coach, obviously we can talk about the big games that are coming up, but there's a lot of games that might be on the docket that are intriguing to you for different reasons. For you, it might be X's and O's. I love this scheme versus this scheme, offense versus defense. It just is going to make a matchup that's going to be fun to watch. But it could just be, these are two great teams, and I want to see how it plays out. You can go in any way you want. You can have as many numbers, as many as you want. What are some intriguing games for you in week 1?
I'll give you one of each. Just from a game standpoint, an intriguing game. Baltimore Buffalo, I think, is the big headliner of the weekend. Probably the matchup of the two best teams against one another. And these are the two teams that can't get over the hump, or at least have not been able to over the last 4 or 5 years. And that hump is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have stymied Baltimore or Buffalo's path to the Super Bowl on many occasions. So it's really interesting to watch these two teams play. These are two teams led by two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, both of whom have this asterisk on their resume, and that asterisk is, they've never gotten their team to a Super Bowl. So I think they're huge years for Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. From a scheme perspective, I'll be fascinated to see what goes on in Minnesota against Chicago. Brian Flores and his defense against Ben Johnson and his offense. These guys are familiar with one another because they played against each other in the division last year. But now it's Ben Johnson in a new city with a new quarterback and a new cast. So I'll be really interested to see, because he's got a very creative offense and Flores has a very creative defense. That's like two mad scientists coming together.
That's going to be fun to watch for sure. And those two know each other well, considering their time in the NFC North. I'm going to go with one which, let's talk about narratives, media narratives. That's where I'm going to go. You talk about matchups, X's and O's. I'm talking about what the talking heads are talking about. Is there a game on the docket that has more narratives than Steelers at Jets in week 1? I mean, when you think about it, you have Aaron Rodgers going back to New York, this after that famed meeting with Aaron Glenn where he basically flew across country to be told, we're cutting you. And he's thinking, you could have just told me this over the phone. Why did we have to be here? He goes to Pittsburgh. The Steelers have they think, a lot of fans thought, at least I did, that Justin Fields, a young quarterback, could be the guy that could be the next maybe placeholder until they find their next franchise quarterback. The Steelers don't match the deal that the Jets offer, and so Justin Fields goes and gets $10 million more guaranteed in New York. These storylines are just incredible. I'm not sure if the game is going to be that entertaining, Coach. It might be a little bit underwhelming from that respect. The total is 38.5. So that's not a very high total. I think this is an intriguing game, though, don't you?
I do. There's a great scheme matchup here, too, when you think about Arthur Smith's run-first offense against Steve Wilks, who's built his reputation as a defensive coordinator, as a run stopper and a blitzer. Steve Wilks has one of the highest blitz percentages of any defense coordinator in football over the last 5 or 6 years. Aaron Rodgers was last in the NFL against the blitz last year. I expect the Jets to blitz the daylights out of Pittsburgh. So if you like the X's and O's, there's some intrigue there as well. But just the whole narrative of Rodgers against the Jets, Fields against the Steelers is one that I think is worth tuning in for.
Let me ask you this question. The Steelers, I kind of posed this on our website, steelcurtainnetwork.com, recently. Mike Tomlin didn't play the majority of his starters very much, if at all, during the preseason. Do you think that the element of surprise is a part of this and going into week one, that the Jets have no tape whatsoever on what Aaron Rodgers and that Arthur Smith offense would look like? And they have no idea what they're going to do with the new players they've acquired, whether it's Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith. You talk about a Roman Wilson who hasn't played really at all since he was drafted last year. Do you think that as a coach, that the element of surprise is even a factor, or is that literally just a first quarter thing?
I think there's some merit to that because you can do some things that are things you won't be able to get away with in any other game because it hasn't been put on the tape,
right,
like you said. But at the same time, the Jets also know what makes Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable.
True.
They know what he struggles with. And so you've got all summer now to scheme up creative ways that maybe Pittsburgh hasn't seen from you to get into these looks that you know are going to give him some problems. So, yeah, I think that's a two-way street.
And likewise, the Steelers know exactly what Justin Fields struggles with and how to deal with him in terms of defensively keeping him in the pocket. He's pretty loose with the football. We've seen him fumble the ball a lot throughout his career, not just in Pittsburgh. Any other games, Coach, that you're looking forward to seeing in week one?
Well, you know what all that means, by the way, for the Steelers-Jets game.
What's that?
Bet the under. bet the under, man. So
Chris Boswell field goals, bet the over.
Oh, field goal fist. Could be another 18-16 game. Everybody loves the old 18-16 game.
Oh, shoot me now.
9 field goals. Yeah, I'll give you one more game. I mean,
sure.
If Parsons plays, Detroit-Green Bay is going to be electric at Lambeau with that crowd. I mean, when Micah Parsons takes the field for Green Bay, that place is going to go berserk. And there's some intrigue, obviously, with Detroit, having to replace both of their coordinators. I look for this to be a chip on the shoulder season for the Lions because everybody says they're not going to be as good. They lost all these different pieces. They won't be as good. I think if there's one thing that Dan Campbell revels in, it's being told you can't.
Yeah.
And so that'll be interesting to see Detroit as they come out of the gates.
Some fun games to watch. There's some duds in there too. Let's not put lipstick on a pig. But I think there's more good games than there are bad. And you don't like division games in week one, correct?
I don't. I like to build towards the division games.
Yeah.
I think when the weather turns, it gets a little colder. You get to figure out who everybody is. That's when I really like to watch those division games.
I hate Baltimore-Buffalo in week one. Last year it was Baltimore-Kansas City in week one. Those are huge games with huge AFC playoff implications. And they're playing in week one. I understand why. It's going to draw massive amounts of viewers to the screens, but still. Nonetheless, let's finish this up with some college football takeaways. Week one in college football is in the books. Some big games, some big moments. You had Ohio State beating Texas, LSU beating Clemson on the road, and also Miami holding serve against Notre Dame. Just to name a few of those games, Coach, what were some of your takeaways from the college football slate of games this past weekend?
I'll give you two. One, for everybody who hyped Arch Manning up before he had done anything of consequence,
right,
and are now summarily burying him after his poor performance against Ohio State. We need some perspective on Arch Manning. This is a guy that was his first start of consequence at the major college level, and he'll probably get another 25 to 30 starts before he comes out for the NFL draft. I mean, unless things completely change, he's coming back next year, which is what he's told everybody, which means everybody's now writing his epitaph after one start. He's going to get 25, 28, maybe 30 college starts. This is the long game with Arch Manning. I mean, he looked bad, no doubt, but he looked bad against the defending national champs on their home field after they had all summer to plan for him. Their DC is a graduate of the Belichick School of Defense, Matt Patricia. This just set up as a really, really tough start for Arch Manning. The more surprising thing, I think, would have been had he gone into the horseshoe and lit it up. So I'm not shocked by that. And then my other takeaway is Florida State, man. For a team that was 2-9 a year ago, they kicked Alabama's ass. I mean, that was a beating they put on Alabama. And I think that's a sign of two things. One, this Florida State may be back. But two, boy, Alabama does not look like Alabama since Nick Saban has left.
No, not at all. But I'm going to go back to Arch Manning for a second. And everyone that's, like you said, they're burying the guy. And he's getting paid a lot of money. This isn't like, oh, poor college kid anymore. Like, let's take it easy on the college athlete. Now, he's making almost $7 million this year. So I'm not going to say that. But at the same time, I think it's his name is done more damage than it has good at this juncture. Going into play Ohio State in week 1 is no easy task. And I did think he played really bad. There were some easier throws you saw early. They got him out of the pocket on the run, and he's just missing open targets. And so that was not good to see, especially if you're someone who's thinking about when he's going to be entering the draft, what team he could be playing for. But I'll tell you what, people that are just going so head over heels for this upcoming 2026 quarterback crop, whether it's Drew Aller, whether it's Sellers, isn't that he's in South Carolina, I believe. All these quarterbacks, I mean, people were just like, this stock up, stock. It's been one game, folks. Yeah. Can we chill a little bit? There's going to be so much movement between all of these players. And can we also keep in mind that not all these players, especially if they're underclassmen, are going to be joining the NFL draft? I don't think Arch Manning was going to be coming out even if he lit it up at Ohio State on Saturday. He just seems like, well, I'm making $7 million anyways. I might as well stick around and not take a pay cut to go into the NFL. So I just think that we all love football. We're all so excited that it's back. And sometimes the knee-jerk reaction can just be absolutely exhausting when it comes to especially the quarterback position. But in terms of the teams that won, you said Florida State. Was there any other team that had a big win that you're like, that team is probably a lot better than some people think?
I think LSU's defense was phenomenal.
Yeah.
They are so fast. That might be the fastest defense in college football. And they made another guy, Cade Klubnik, the Clemson quarterback, who's being talked about like a high first-round draft pick. They made another high-profile QB look bad. He looked bad. He was running for his life. Whereas Arch Manning, I think Ohio State confused him more than anything else, and they made him late with the ball, and they made him see things that he wasn't sure what he was looking at. LSU just hounded Cade Klubnik with their pressure and their speed, and he was running for his life all night. So if that's what LSU is going to be on defense this year, they're going to be a tough out.
So let me ask you this question before we go to our profile of the week. Do you agree or disagree? I watched as much college football as I have in a long time. Boy, did the offensive play calling seem super conservative. Did you see that the same, or were you thinking with Jeff, you just don't know the hell you're talking about? Which is that could be accurate.
Well, I think that I agree. I mean, not in the Florida State game. I mean, that game was really wide open and was played wide open. But in the two marquee games, right? The Ohio State-Texas game, LSU-Clemson, both close, low-scoring games where the defenses were clearly ahead of the offenses. And I think in those types of games, offensive coordinators do get more conservative. You become really afraid of turning the football over because you're not sure what your quarterback is comfortable with, and the speed of the defense is creating all sorts of problems for you. So that's like where you just you put your seatbelt on and you hope that you can run the football and move, matriculate the ball down the field, as they say, and kick field goals are good there. Kicks are good in games like that. You either want to punt the ball away or kick a field goal. You don't want to turn it over. And when you're nervous about your quarterback, you get real conservative as a play caller.
Okay, the teams that lost those big games, we're talking Texas, we're talking Clemson, and we're talking Notre Dame. Which one of those three have the best shot at rebounding and being a force in the playoffs down the stretch?
I think Notre Dame, because quite frankly, their schedule's not that hard.
Okay.
Clemson obviously too has a shot to win the ACC, and then you get in with the automatic bid. But man, Florida State is an ACC team, and they look pretty darn good. Texas should be fine as well. They're super talented. I think all three of those teams their season is still alive. I wouldn't bury any of them. The one team that I might bury is Alabama. I mean, I just did not think that they looked particularly great anywhere. They're unbelievably talented at the wide receiver position, but I don't know if they have the quarterback that can cash in on that. Defensively, they looked as ordinary as Alabama has looked in a long, long time.
There's rumors Nick Saban might be coming back, and maybe he'll be sooner rather than later.
He's got to pay those kids that NIL money, and for an old dog like Nick Saban, that is a tough bone to
That's true. All right, let's finish this up with a profile, not a player profile. I want to give, sticking with the college football theme, Lee Corso, the man that everyone knows from his legendary performances on College Game Day, had his final appearance over the weekend, and the dude went a perfect 6 for 6 on his last picks. It's awesome. He picked Ohio State, Tennessee, Florida State, LSU, South Carolina, Miami, all to win. What a kind of fairy tale ending for Lee Corso. I don't remember him as a coach. I only remember him on College Game Day, and I've seen some clips that have just been hysterical. There was a kid on once who was a Harvard-Yale game, and he said, "Go Bulldogs." He goes, "Hold, not too fast, midget." He's one of one, man. So anything you want to say about Lee Corso?
Well, you know what I didn't know about Lee Corso that I found out over the weekend as they were doing these tributes to him was how great a player he was.
Okay.
He was a wide receiver / quarterback at Florida State in the 1950s. He held the record for the most touchdowns by any player in Florida State history up until the 1980s. I mean, he was legit, and then obviously had a great coaching career. So yeah, you're right, man. We forget sometimes how good these guys are as both players and coaches. But his personality was such that you couldn't not be drawn to him. He would piss you off. He was one of the few guys that could pick against your team and everybody would boo him, but they'd kind of boo him without it being mean-spirited. And that's a hard thing to pull off these days.
Yeah. It's just so great when he would take the mascot head and put it on and stuff. And he just knew how to get it. He was like Pat McAfee, I'm sure, has gotten a lot from him and the way he handles the crowd, and he knows how to be the heel. There's only one Lee Corso, we'll put it that way. So, all right, Coach.
He's like the Dick Vitale of college football.
That's a great comparison. That's a good parallel there for sure. All right, Coach, what's coming up on the Call Sheet Daily this week?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited, man. My guest on Wednesday will be Mike Mayock, former NFL GM, general manager of the Raiders, and longtime NFL Network TV personality. And we're gonna talk about a couple of things. We're gonna talk about his path in football, which is fascinating. I mean, this is a guy who was in real estate for like 17 years after his playing career ended, before he got back into football. But we're also going to talk about now as we're approaching week 1, from a general manager's perspective. How do you put a roster together? Like, what are the calculations you have to make in order to get to where all these NFL teams are? 90-some guys down to 53, roster construction, and the perspective of a GM. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, so make sure you check that out wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Call Sheet Daily, or you can check that out also in video form on Pro Football Insider's YouTube channel. Just search Pro Football Insiders. You'll find it there, as well as this video if you want to watch that video at Pro Football Insider's YouTube. But, Coach, that's been a wrap. We'll be back recapping week 1. It's hard to believe, but we're here. Finally made it. Thanks for your time. We'll see you next week.